Welcome everybody to Pop Culture. I am Scott.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Monica.
And this episode, back on Blood Splatter Week, we're talking about the new Candyman from Nia DaCosta, written by Jordan Peele and Neil DaCosta and Win Rosenfeld, sequel to the original Candyman from 1992, based on the short story by Clive Barker. So there's a lot of lineage here to get to this film. I thought I was going to like it, and I really, really liked it.
Hooray!
I really down your alley, was it?
Yeah, I going into it, I'm like, this looks dark enough and weird enough to be my cup of tea, and it was dark enough and weird enough.
Yeah, I'm someone who doesn't do horror very well, so I was very pleasantly surprised with how much I really liked this movie. Probably because I saw it more as a really dark thriller more than a horror.
Well, I have to say it was a long time ago since I saw the original Candyman, and I do remember the general, I don't know, it's sort of gritty feeling of discomfort that came out of the first one when I saw that. And so I was really interested to see what this would do with it. And generally, it really did recapture it quite well. There was a few things that I found which were a bit different. It sort of took it a little bit out of the general field of the original. Just that didn't feel as set in the downtrodden areas as much as the original film was. And so that was just one bit that I found disappointing, but otherwise it was certainly a worthy sequel, and it was good that it sort of decided to just get rid of all the other sequels to Candyman.
Yep. Way to retcon.
Yep.
Well, I think the first one, I mean, I don't know, I've never read the short story, but and my memory of it is fairly vague, but I certainly remember it had an element of commentary.
Absolutely.
On these sort of like poor communities and the ghetto, if you want. And this movie certainly leans on the commentary.
It certainly does. I think maybe a little bit to the film's detriment because it's trying to sort of shove too many things in your face. It's about folklore and history, gentrification in the literal sense of the area that they go back to, and also, I guess, replacing Candyman's story with the story of what happens to Helen from the first film as well, race relations, and also the horrific experience that children go through from broken families. But there's a lot to unpack, and I think there's a bit too much going on.
Well, I just found that, and this is where it's different to the original. The original, it was set in the environment more than trying to make a point about it. And that's what made it quite apparent what was going on, and you didn't need much more labored into it. So this one
sort of leaning on that gentrification idea, like they've got to say it because they're not shooting in it, like so heavily. The neighborhood's on upmarket.
But like the artist in it, the main character, his literal depiction of violence in his painting, the film lays all these themes in really obvious cartoon ways of being very literal and visual and specific. It sort of, it makes these themes really drably clear, which is great. It sort of gives that tone to the film, but at the same time it sort of feels a bit more labored as a result, because you're delving into those themes and in an academic way almost, rather than just letting it become part of the film experience. But in saying that, I'm talking about just little moments, not
I still found
the whole film.
There's something I can't even think of what we reviewed recently that did that. What did we something we talked about that was like really heavy-handed with its commentary.
Oof,
and I can't even remember what it was.
It's been a few.
because we were doing like 3 a week and I can't remember. Whatever it was, I didn't find this as on the nose as whatever we talked about previously.
No, well, it didn't step outside the
Which
context.
sounds
That's
like
for
a
sure.
really bad. It's not as good as
I
some
remember
film.
his review.
It's better than that other film. Some other film I reviewed. It's not as good as that. It's better than that. Sorry, that
Yeah,
was really dumb.
it's more that it sort of fell into this trap of having it academic, and the best way I can say is the addition of the pretentious artists.
Clickbait. Was the...
Yes. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
having the art critic in there
they're sort of analyzing, and it just sort of it made it too upfront, whereas it could have been far more subtle and much more enjoyable. And I found that the addition of this sort of pretentious art society was actually not part of what the whole thing's about, and it sort of
the urban legends and
it sort of distracted from it, and it was weird. That was the only bit that I went, it missed out on that really nice gritty feeling of the original by having it sort of slicked and put into those galleries and whatnot. But at the same time, it manages to sort of push past that in a way that really makes it quite impacting.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I feel that the inclusion of those particular scenes, I think, tries to over-intellectualize everything where it didn't really need to.
I think they're really really fighting to make it kind of more of a, dare I say, smart horror film.
Yes. Which isn't a bad thing, but
no.
Just not as effective when sometimes you don't need to tell your audience, if they're smart, they'll figure it out. It makes it more fun.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But all that stuff, those like issues aside, I found it genuinely creepy.
Yeah, I loved especially the use of music and sound to build all the tension. That scene where you have Anthony, the artist, in the critic's house, and he is looking in the mirror, and the music builds as he sees this reflection of the Candyman doing the same actions that he is in the mirror, and you can hear the bees getting louder and louder, and they're sort of smacking against the mirror, and they're tapping, and it was wonderful. Really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, the sound design was awesome.
Yeah.
It's like the moment that really stuck out for me was he was just walking down some external hallway with the rain.
Yeah.
Sort of going heavy then light and heavy then light. And you realize how much sound is being used in the film at that point because nothing else is happening other than that. Yeah. So, the sound design was unreal. Sorry, Scott, you go.
Yeah, at no point does it ever sort of descend into kind of jump scare kind of fair.
No,
there were all these kind of like really well built sequences. Even the point where the art critic gets offed was this really like wide shot to not linger on the gore or anything. It's just this like sudden uncomfortable movement.
Yeah, and the same in the scene in the high school with the 4 girls as well. You don't necessarily, because not seeing what happens is a lot more frightening than showing what's happening, but you get glimpses of it in reflections in the mirror. And to me, having your own imagination make those scenarios in your head is much more frightening than actually having to go to the effort of putting it on camera and showing you the gory aspect.
Yeah, and they certainly kept the I guess the notion of Candyman a little more abstract than kind of Tony Todd menacingly coming at them with a hook.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also lends itself towards the end of the film when you sort of see the character of William Burke recreating the folklore.
Yeah.
And, and trying to reestablish the status quo. So that's sort of what happens.
And change the, he's trying to also like change the meaning of the myth.
Yeah, absolutely.
From this sort of like, I guess, black victimization to like black vengeance.
Yes, absolutely.
Which was, yeah.
I also have to say, in the movie, I really loved the use of the shadow puppets to explain.
Yeah, that was awesome.
the scene.
Yeah.
I had the note there going to talk about that. That was
Oh, it was just beautiful, wasn't it?
yeah. It was
Yeah.
a great way to sort of bring you back in from the original to link it, but not. I guess it's as you suggested. It's leading to more imagination and you filling in a lot of gaps there when you're looking at the shadow puppets and what's being shown.
And it's a much more effective way to sort of, I guess, share exposition to, drive the story forward than just having a character sit and tell you. It's a nice way to distract the audience that, you're being fed information.
Sorry, go, Scott.
No, go.
I was just going, I actually saw it as what it was suggesting too. It's sort of like this idea of this is what you're being told, but it's like a shadow of what it was being told, not
quite literally
the direct experience necessarily. So for me, it was going that's actually really clever because
that's
you
exactly
sort of
what
got
I was
that.
going to say, because it also bends the truth.
Yeah, that's right.
Of like the narrative of the original film.
It does as well. And when you sort of have at the beginning of the film where you have the brother telling the story as well, that's something that's been passed down as an oral tradition. So the story is going to slowly morph and change over time and the further away you get from the actual event taking place. So that makes complete sense.
It also adds to that sort of mythology of it because you get a lot of sort of puppet shows and things like Punch and Judy and whatever else. So it sort of added to that on top of it. So it was, I love that bit. That was great.
It was amazing. Those were my favorite parts of the movie, I have to say.
I liked finally getting Tony Todd right at the end because I think he does have an eerie gravitas to him.
Yeah, certainly.
But it was sort of like I don't know. By that point, it didn't feel completely necessary because it was all about this sort of like the changing Candyman. Candyman's more than it's these individuals who have suffered horribly.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. And in saying that as well, the performances by Yahoo Abdul Martin II as Anthony, he was really good in this movie.
He was really good.
He was really good, and so was Teyonah Parris, who plays his sister, Nathan Stewart Jarrett, who plays Troy, the brother. I thought he was a great addition. He was wonderful.
The aggressively defensive
brother who doesn't take any crap.
I'm really curious to see Martin play Morpheus in the new Matrix film. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. I really enjoyed his portrayal of Anthony. Really good.
It was a sort of a, I guess, part character study too of this guy digging deeper and deeper and deeper and kind of losing his mind a bit to the myth more than the effects of it. Yeah,
absolutely. It's, not just a story about Candyman, but it's definitely a story about becoming obsessed with something to the exclusion of all else.
Yeah. To the point that he I guess he becomes a part of the urban legend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Candyman. Got anything else to say?
There's your fifth one. No. It's you asked me earlier, have you ever done the Candyman in the mirror thing? And I remember doing it as a kid when I saw not as a kid, but a very young adult.
1992.
Yes. Well, it feels like I was now. But
I'd see this is like I liked this movie so much. It's like I need to go rewatch it because I haven't seen it since I was a teenager. So there were bits I remember of the old one, but I remember the ending, like with the fire and stuff.
I just remember the gritty, the sort of like there's little moments of this film that harked back to it, where he's sort of taking photos of the graffiti, and then his paintings evolve into the sort of imagery that you saw in the original film. And I guess the grittiness bit was the part that I felt was missing, which was a shame, but it works. It works really well. And this idea of, I guess, even exploiting the whole situation that it's exploring, which is
Mm.
what all that art stuff is about, is exploiting it all,
Mm.
makes it fit and makes it work. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prop to Nia DaCosta too. Some of the camera movements, and we're talking about the opening credits with these sort of upside down buildings that for some reason like really made me uncomfortable to the point of like my stomach flipped and I felt like I was going to be sick. It was really strange, like
Take that,
weird
Chris.
vertigo. It was just like really weirded me out. I don't know why.
Hmm.
And I'm excited.
It threw me at first, but I actually quite liked it. But maybe I like that feeling of vertigo. Who knows?
Maybe. And yeah, she's just signed on to direct the Captain Marvel sequel.
Okay.
She's my age. Just makes me feel like a worthless.
No, some of it's part luck.
Yeah.
No, good on her. Like, oh, this is talent.
Yeah.
This movie is phenomenally well directed horror film.
Mm.
So yeah, no, Candyman 2021. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's worth seeing if you enjoyed that first one. It's definitely worth seeing.
Yeah, give it a go. Why
It's
not?
got a good hook.
Oh no!
Oh,
You just stuffed it, Scott.
Oh, go to the end credits.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Pop Culture. I've been Scott.
I'm still Jason.
And I'm still Monica.